If we were sent to internment camps for our own protection, you used to say all the time, then you have to ask the question, why were there barbed wires with the machine gun posts pointing their machine guns inwards and not outwards?
The layout was a fairly large compound, a large area, surrounded by barbed wire fences, and there were guard towers, 9 guard towers, and manned with military guards with weapons.
We didn't know from day to day what was going to happen. No news. They hardly gave you any information. So you had to find out for yourself.
Winter was really bad, you know, with all the slush and stuff like that. And we would have to go pretty far from our block to the co-op, you know, to buy little things.
Well, see, we only had to go with a suitcase, so we couldn't take too much. We didn't know where we were going to go or anything. So I guess some people had took their winter clothes, some didn't. And so we got pea coats. Everybody got jackets, you know. And that's the only way you kept warm.
Well, you know, actually, I don't think I felt Japanese because I was born here and grew up here, and I just thought I was American. That's why I think I couldn't quite understand why all of a sudden I was different, because I don't think I felt that way.
My mom and dad must have helped me put up ropes and sheets that we took a section off for some privacy.
I do remember the conditions in the classrooms were pretty bad at the start. We had you know, like benches, no tables, very few books, and it was a very difficult environment until the carpenters in the camp created a lot of the furnishings and extra material like books were brought in later on.
Employees were all inmates, so to speak. So they were the Japanese cooks, probably Issei and Nisei, they were experienced, because they volunteered to work in the mess halls.
We have a frying pan, a big pot-belly stove, and then, you know, they bring the rice in from the mess hall, and we make our own dinner. We didn't like to eat liver.
My mother just loved it. She went to classes, she took calligraphy and poetry. She wrote Japanese poetry. Because they set up school, you know, classes for everybody. Really well done.
I looked at my grandfather's medical record, and it showed that he was treated for cancer, colon cancer, with Pepto-Bismol, and he suffered hard, bad, and in 4 months he was down to skin and bones. He just wasn't eating, and he looked terrible and painful, and he finally passed away in camp, and it was a difficult time.
I always knew that was wrong for them to make me leave, being an American citizen. The Germans, the Italians, you know, they weren't treated that way we were treated.
Well, one day the fire alarms went on and continued on for a long time. And somebody started passing the word, this must be the end of the war. This must mean we get to leave. And that's how we found out Japan surrendered.
My biggest disappointment was not being able to finish my education. I often wonder what difference it would have made if I'd completed it, but those are the kind of things you think, what if, you know?
Well, you got that.
Might have changed my life.
Fortunately, we still had our house. He had the wisdom to not sell the house and kept it. I don't remember who took care of it during our absence, but we went back to our own house. In contrast to many people who did not have homes because they were forced to sell their homes and at least have a nest egg to live on when they were moved. But a lot of people didn't have jobs.
I had a lot of good Caucasian friends too, you know, here, that took care of my cars, 2 cars that I owned. So a lot of people didn't have all those good friends, you know. So it was depending on each family. They had good friends. If you had neighbors that was against you and all, they went out of the way to break into your house and all that. But it was just depending on how you act, is how you got treated.
70 years ago when we came out of the camp, we were just penniless. We couldn't even find a job. We were competing against the soldiers that were coming back, you know. Yeah. Gosh, I walked the street in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, trying to get a job. So I ended up in a government job.
But the point is, we were afraid to go back home, not knowing what the conditions were. So a lot of people just stayed in the camp until the government forced us to leave camp. And we had a few people go back home to check out the conditions and see if the environment was okay for us to return.
That, I remember my mom telling her sisters and relatives that when she was looking at the house, the neighbor man said to her, "You know this is a restricted area, don't you?" And so she always had really bad feelings towards that man while we were living there. But
The lack of availability of a car was very noticeable. We had to, my mother would have, we weren't home yet, she would have to walk all the way to the store, which was, closest store was on quite a few blocks away for her, But other than that, and the buses were very crowded.
Well, it was a big adjustment for a Californian to get used to New England, I think, yeah. But I had friendly classmates, and they all knew my situation, and they were very kind and sympathetic with me, so.
So, coming home from school one day, some kid, Caucasian boy, ran out of a house and he, blocked my way like this, and but I don't remember what he said to me, but it had something to do with the fact that I was Japanese, okay? And then somebody came to the door of that house and yelled at him to come back, and so he went in.
And then they couldn't just go into roses or carnations, so my father grew under lath houses type thing, easy to grow, fast blooming flowers, and then eventually got back to carnations. But that was took quite a while. I don't remember the time span, but somehow we managed. There were some good points to take away from that experience. We could be bitter, but it doesn't do any good to be bitter.
Oh well, I feel we were mistreated. I definitely feel that, especially during the war, I could have gotten my degree, worked in the defense industries, make a contribution.